You're listening to the She Lift Project podcast, a show dedicated to helping women achieve higher levels of success in the workplace. No matter where you are in your career, we want to help you grow. Now here's your host, Cynthia Kirkpatrick, a CPA, CFP, and Senior Financial Advisor at Moneta Group.
Welcome to another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. I'm Cynthia Kirkpatrick. Thanks for joining us today, along with Noelle Robinson, founder, owner of the Sound Spa in St. Peters, Missouri, mom of three, and someone who overcame your own health challenges to then share that, what you've learned and the experiences with others.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to sit down and talk finally.
Right. I mean, we run into each other in a lot of different spaces. You're winning a lot of awards, businesswoman and just business in general, with what you're bringing to the community. But when we think about, I'm sure some people are like, Sound Spa, what is that?
Yeah. We get asked a lot if we sell recording equipment. So we definitely don't do that. But the Sound Spa is really that resort close to home, right? So many people come to us and we're like a mini vacation amongst the chaos of life, which is really cool because that wasn't necessarily what I thought it was going to be. But to hear that it's almost like I can drive 5 minutes and feel like I'm on vacation at a luxe resort, like that's amazing. But what we do is sound immersions. So sound immersions are where you are fully immersed in the vibrations of therapeutic instruments. And it seems so natural once you've done it. You really notice how your body responds, how your nervous system responds. But as something new to the community, it is very often something that feels very strange. Like, wait, what? You go and lay in a room. What's a gong? Is it the gong show? What are these bowls? People, what do you mean you lay around other people? Like the pushback we get and just the questions, and it's not from a place of rejection, it's from a place of curiosity. I will say that we usually just get a lot of curiosity and a lot of maybe fear of the unknown. But if you think about it, what is known isn't necessarily always good for you either, right? What is new doesn't always make it bad. It's just different. And so it's been a really cool journey to kind of go through this and see how the iteration of when we started to where we are and how that's been received by the community. And, again, winning the awards, getting the recognition. It's been a really cool journey.
Well, what's new is old and what's old is new again. I mean, you could just look at fashion, right? I think just sound in general, music in general, if oftentimes in our day-to-day, we're just turning on the radio or in the shower or whatever, because music brings us something, right? Whether it's joy or if we're going through something difficult, it's helping us through those emotions. You go back centuries since the dawn of time, I'm sure, at least close to it. Music has always been a part of that. The sound has always been a part of our healing, our well-being, our community and relationships. So it does sort of sound weird, but at the same time, I think if you step back, it's normal.
Right? It's so ingrained in our DNA, and it was normal for so many years. Now, the way that we do it today, maybe that's the difference, right? The way it's presenting itself, but the theory behind it, the science behind it, the healing behind it has been going on for centuries. And we are just modernizing that practice. And sound, so what we do is called a sound bath. And I refer to it as a sound immersion or a sound session, simply because when I tell people about a sound bath, do I have to get naked? Is there water? There's a lot of the word bath, right? But the idea around the original name was that you were bathing in the vibrations. So in a sound bath, they've been doing this since the 1960s. And most of the time it was in very yogic type of areas, very spiritual communities, more for the yoga community. But this has been going on in America for many decades. And it's just recently really surged as a more modern practice. And I think part of that is one, part of the Sound Spa's goal is that we are modernizing this and making it for everybody. It's not just for yoga, yogis. It's not just for hippies or spiritualists or anything like that, right? Like sound is sound. It has no sound vibration, has no biases. It has no preferences, right? Everyone can benefit it. We all have nervous systems. And so my goal was always to modernize. And when I first started, it seemed like nobody else was modern. Like it was just seemed very disconnected from our current society at the time. And it's been cool to see over the last 3 years as holistic health has become much more mainstream, as functional health, as integrative wellness has become more of a priority, not only for maybe those who are already aware, but also just an awareness that's spreading. And sound is really starting to become more mainstream as part of that movement.
Right, because I'm sure there were other places that started first, whether it's just massage or, in that holistic space, the incense, the things, and then the sound. Probably, you almost need the others introduction to get into the sound awareness, acceptance kind of deal.
Sometimes. I one of my mentors, when I first started training under sound, she said she was a massage therapist back in the early 90s. And she equated very much the sound growth to massage, because when massage first started, it was very much like a parlor type, a happy ending type belief system, right? Everyone kind of had those perspectives of, oh, you're a masseuse, like you do massage, like it was masseuse, like it was a little questionable there. And now, right, everyone's a massage therapist. Like they are seen as part of wellness, as part of longevity, as part of medical care, right? You have massage therapists in many hospitals and many different therapies. And it seems that sound is very much taking that same trajectory, and it's really cool to be a part of it.
So when you think about, and we talked a little bit about it, sound therapy, a session, an episode, a group, like what does this paint the picture? I'm putting on, as you said earlier, you're not getting naked. So, you're putting on comfortable clothes, you're laying on a mat in a big room, and there's these bowls and a gong, and a specialist is playing music. Mm-hmm. Like, what does that look like and feel like?
So it looks different in different places, right? I'm going to speak to what it looks like at the sound spa. I think that if you go in other places, and that, this is done all across the country, again, it can be done it's usually done in a very like spiritual manner, or a very energetic space, whereas we focus on mindfulness and science. So coming to the sound spa, we have the experience wise, we have everything that everyone could need. So people come in, you're greeted. My staff is amazing. Our team is just amazing. And it's really important to us that everyone feels confident about what they're experiencing, because what we do is so new. And we work with a lot of people with anxiety. And one of the things, if you have anxiety, you need to know all the details, right? Like I can tell that you've struggled with anxiety because you give all the details about what the podcast is, like what exactly is going to happen, where do you park, how many reminders you send, right? Like you need to know the facts.
I mean, I am a CPA along with all this stuff, so we're very, yes.
Exactly. And so we work with a lot of people who they need to know the details. And so we very much educate from the moment you walk in our door. We're like, welcome. We're going to walk you through step by step. Here's where you put your shoes. Here's what you need to bring inside. Here's what you can leave out here. Let's turn your cell phone off, right? We're walking you through that. Then we're going to have bolsters. We have pillows and blankets and eye masks. We have all the stuff that you might need to become really cozy when you get in the studio. So we talk through that. Which pillow might be best for you? Which bolster might be best for you? And then we go into the studio and we give kind of like a rundown of everything to expect, right? We're going to do this first. We're going to start with these instruments. We're going to move through these instruments. You're going to experience us walking around with instruments. You're going to experience this. So we try to really walk people through that experience their first time. Now, after they've experienced it, they don't need that anymore. But we have, again, 75-80% of the people who come through our doors have never experienced a sound event, have no idea what they're doing. And so it's really important to us that we build that relationship and that trust right from the beginning, and that there's no surprises. So there's that. Then if you were to look from the outside in, and my husband hates it when I say this, it looks like adult nap time. It really does.
I'm hooked.
Right? It looks like adult nap time. So we have 20 mats and 0 gravity chairs, depending, because some people don't like to get on the floor, or they can't get on the floor. So it's really important to us that we accommodate. So we have 0 gravity chairs if people would like that as well. And sometimes people like it even better because you can feel the vibrations underneath you. So the 0 gravity chairs are really nice. So once you're in the studio and you're super comfy and you've got all your things, right? We start with just a little bit of deep breathing, a little bit of relaxing, right? There's just a little bit of an entrance. And then you're going to lay down, get super comfy, eye mask on. And from there, the sounds begin. And we start with, you'll hear a meditation. So the meditation kind of helps slow the brain waves, because we really want to start relaxing the nervous system before the sounds even start. Because if you start playing the sounds and you're still literally I just got back from a meeting and now I'm laying down, it's going to take you longer to get in. So it's really important to us that we really calm the nervous system in this whole process. It's very intentional. And so we start with gongs and we walk around, and you can literally feel the vibrations from the instruments while you're laying there. And so while you're laying there, some people, maybe it's their first time, they might still be stuck in their head. And so, you might still be kind of dealing with the to-do list and the things, and that's okay, right? Some people come in and they get immediately into a meditative state and they're just here. They're here for it. And everyone has their own experience. Some people fall asleep during a session, and that's fine too. The cool thing about it is that even if you come in super on edge, super hyped, the sound waves do through a process called entrainment. It's where this is where the magic happens, is basically through entrainment. So our brain waves, right? Our brain waves, our heart waves, are the symphony of our cells. We'll just say it, all of the things that are happening inside our body. Our body has its own symphony happening.
I love that.
Right? It is. It's this beautiful symphony. And where dysfunction begins, where lack of health begins, is when some part of our symphony is not working properly, right? When some part of our symphony gets stuck. So think about going to the symphony and all of a sudden the flutes stop working, right? You're going to notice it. Something's going to sound off. If any part of that symphony starts off, then the conductor needs to deal with that, right? But the problem is that our cells cannot communicate directly to us. So we don't know what part of our symphony might not be working other than symptoms we have. So when you are in a sound immersion, the beautiful thing about it is that symphony that happens in our cells also recognizes sound vibration around us. So our nervous system, our entire body is always collecting information from outside, and that includes the vibrations around us. So when these therapeutic instruments start, the gongs, these huge vibrations, not only are you hearing it auditorily, but because you're in the room with the vibrations, you're absorbing it all physically. And through the process of entrainment, where our brain waves will start to slow down to meet the waves of the instruments, your thoughts start to slow down. You start to become more present. And we can use those instruments to bring the brain into a meditative state. And so that's the power of the sound immersion. The power of the sound immersion isn't necessarily in the music you hear. It's in the experience that the body has as it entrains to the waves around it, to the sound vibration waves. And that's where healing begins, because now we can add energy into those cells, right? We can bring those cells back together, those neurons, and we can start to tune up our internal symphony.
As you began talking about it a couple minutes ago, I was imagining it. I've never done the sound immersion, done, massages with sound and different things, how much your body relaxes in the moment. And even just sitting here, I just felt more in the moment and like more relaxed as you were even just talking about it. I was imagining what this would feel like.
Yes. And that's through entrainment too. So like through talking to me and me talking through this process, right? We entrain to the people around us. We entrain to the activity around us. Entrainment happens everywhere, right? So as I'm talking about the process, like the experience, I can physically I can put myself in that experience because I'm talking through and imagining me being there. Like I have a sound session after this that I've scheduled. So and so as I'm feeling that, your brain, your heart waves, right, start to entrain to me. And that's the beautiful thing about being a human, is that we're entraining all over the place. We entrain, like, think about it. When you're in a room working with people, if everyone's focused and working, you're more likely to be focused and working. If everyone's in a bad mood, you're more likely to be in a bad mood, right? That's why it's so, like, your environment's so important, because you're constantly entraining. The issue and the reason why the sound spa exists is because we are entraining to very toxic situations, very toxic inputs. Our body is bombarded with toxic inputs. And so our thoughts become toxic. Our emotions become toxic. We're just becoming toxic beings, and we're not meant to be like that. And so that's why the sound spa exists. And that's why we've gotten the results that we've gotten, and the transformations that we've been able to give to people, is because we're starting to bring the body back to its natural state through sound and vibration.
Well, and we're gonna come back to you to get some examples of this. Not only, I know we'll talk about your story and your health and wellness, but also people that you've seen come in and get, that health and wellness. I think of it, as you were saying there, beyond that, right? There's so many books that talk about you are the culmination of the 5 closest people around you. As you mentioned, we're bombarded with so much everything, noise coming our way, especially with social media and just everything. How to settle the mind, open the heart, get in alignment in the symphony, love that, and get that toxicity out. How important that is, whether it's when we think about the sound spa, but you think about all the other areas in your life where they talk about what environment are you putting yourself in? Who are you letting into your inner circle? Like, this makes so much sense when you think about the different ways we've been hearing it all along. So I'm just saying that to say that. Where I wanted to go, though, as you mentioned, I'm sure there's a lot of people that come in sort of skeptical or are hopeful because they have an issue. Have you seen transformations or anything, a story stick out to you where
Absolutely.
You're like, I cannot believe I just saw what I saw happen?
Absolutely. It's really cool. I will say, we've had big transformations, right? Big transformations. But what I love the most is the little transformations, actually. The mom who's really struggling because her kids are driving her crazy. And then she comes in.
What? Is that possible?
Right? And leaves feeling, oh, I can do this. I can stay calm, and I can navigate this situation with my child without becoming emotionally dysregulated, right? Because I know that isn't only helping the mom, that's helping the kid, that's helping that whole family ecosystem, right? So, or the man who comes in who's been struggling to sleep, right? And just really struggling, and all of a sudden he's sleeping every night. And now, not only, he used to get really bad anxiety about, I'm thinking of one particular person who I've known for a really long time, for quite a while, and he came in a couple sessions and he was like, I'm normally very anxious going to work. Sundays are terrible. It's like, this is the first week, and I don't know how long, that I just felt great, calm, focused. I had a great week at work. I'm more focused. Those who, Friday, there was a man posted on Facebook after coming in that his ADHD symptoms, so he has an adult ADHD, which right now, who doesn't? Right? He was able to get back to work, and he was like, my ADHD is so much better after I come in. We have women who come in with cancer who really struggle with pain because of the medications that they're taking, and they're finally able to sleep. They're able to rest. They feel more peace, and their pain starts to go away. We have a woman who comes 4 times a week, right? We have women who come once a week, twice a week. We have such a wide range. I could literally go on for 2 hours about all the stories. You know, the first grader who came in and she was able to navigate something. And the cool thing is that the moms who come in, I never realized we would be teaching people something during this. Like, we're teaching them the skill of calming down. I didn't realize that's what we were doing in the beginning. And so many have shared with me, I came and I shared this with my daughter, and now she's sleeping, and now I'm showing, you know, the certain things that we do in the studio. I'm doing it, you know, sharing it with my kid. They're bringing their kids. So it's becoming mindfulness, and this idea of being present is not just an individual thing, then it becomes a family thing. Or people who don't have children. One particular member, she was actually in towards the very beginning of the sound spa, and she came in. And I just love her story. So she came in and she was had been hit by life. I'm trying to think about how much I can share here because I know a lot of her story. So she had a lot of pain. She'd been seeing specialists for months and was in tears. So she worked from home. She couldn't even get from her bed to her office without, she was missing a lot of work. It was awful. She had some autoimmune issues going on, just in a terrible spot, puking because of the pain was so bad, crying constantly. In the doctor's office crying. And she found the sound spa. I don't remember how. And she said, I think maybe a coworker said something. And she said, she was going to get injections for the pain, and she didn't want to get the injections. And she said, you know what? I'm going to go try the sound spa. I'm going to go for she was supposed to get injections in 2 weeks. She said, I'm going to try the sound spa. And if I can make this work, I'm going to make it work because I don't want to get injections. And he said, okay, I'll see you in 2 weeks. The doctor was like, okay, you do you.
Whatever, sure.
Okay.
Let's pencil you in right now.
We're going to go ahead and just expect that appointment to be kept. And not even 2 weeks. It was like 5 or 6 days. She came 4 times a week in the beginning. And within, she said, like her 4th or 5th appointment, the pain was gone completely. And she canceled the injections. She never got the injections. She not only healed her chronic pain, healed her immune system in the process. So she started coming, I would say, she doesn't come anymore. So I would say she probably came for about 8 months total. But within 4 months, within 3 to 4 months, and she would come, and when she would come, she would cry. Like, she would cry a lot when she was with us. She had so much repressed emotion. And she didn't even realize it. And it would just come out. And she didn't even know all the time, right? Like, you don't even always know. It's just in there. And you don't have to know. And that's the beautiful thing. Because in talk therapy, you're just trying to process, and you have to reprocess. In this, it's more somatic. And so the body's just releasing. And you don't always have to re-experience in order to release. And within 4 months, she was working more. She was not missing work at all. If anything, her bosses became super supportive. So her bosses were like, hey, you need to go to a sound spa? Like, go. Because she's going to show up better. She was more productive. She was making better decisions. And then now to see her, not only has she lost a lot of weight, she is active. She has a social life now. She's seeing her family and her friends. When she used to recluse, she was in so much pain and she was struggling so much, she never saw people. And now I recently saw a picture of her hiking in the Grand Canyon, and I texted her and I was like, oh my God, that just made me cry because that wouldn't have been possible for her. And
I have to ask, did she ever see that doctor again or any of her other doctors?
Oh, she went and told everybody.
And were they like, what happened? What did you do? Or no way?
Yeah. And she told everybody. Her chiropractors were even like, she had a chiropractor she'd been seeing for a long time. And they're like, you just look different. You look happy. You look like you have life again inside of you. And that's really cool to see someone's spark come back, because that was what happened with me, right? And so to know and to see this happen over and over and over again, to be told by, another woman that if we weren't there for her during the time that she experienced some really lows, she doesn't even know if she'd still be here today. But that the sound spa was her saving grace. And just knowing what giving somebody some peace and calm can really do, not only for them, but their relationships, the people they serve. It's really cool. There are no words, really.
And I've probably within the last year plus or so, I've really tried to get into more of some of those like meditative spaces. And for a mom of three myself, and a very demanding career, plus the podcast, plus everything else that goes on, living in the head and that constant, and for those who are listening on, not watching us, but listening, like next to my head, I just have this like circle, like my head just spinning, that probably don't realize what that does to the body, and vice versa. That those moments, as I get into more meditation, again, turning off the brain to let the heart and everything else open up and have its moment, and that release. It's not a one and done, right? It's not like you're going to go potentially do it one time and everything's going to be healed. So don't have that expectation. Put the time into it, the practice. Yet getting in that whole symphony and alignment, I'll keep going back to that, really can do so much for the soul, and just that pause, because we're so inundated with messages and things and what we have to do that we don't take time to shut down. You think about your laptop, your car, whatever, that all, did you reboot yet? Did you start your computer over? Like, if we have to do that for other things, why wouldn't we have to do that for our bodies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you referenced your journey, and I think that's important, because a lot of where we're at today is what got us here, what happened, what did we learn along the way.
Yeah.
And certainly, little Noelle wasn't one where like, hey, one day I'm gonna have this thing called a sound spa.
Absolutely not. Noelle 5 years ago wouldn't have said, I'm gonna have a sound spa.
Because Noelle 5+ years ago, you were a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So you are kind of still doing teaching, right? You're helping educate and teach.
Yeah.
Yet, so maybe that was just your path. You were destined to it. But you were teaching in high school? Grade school?
I was in middle school when I left, so I've taught all three. I've taught elementary, middle school, and high school. But I'd spent my last 4 years in middle school teaching 6th and 7th grade ELA, English Language Arts, so teaching reading and writing, which I think is probably the beginning of what would be now sales experience, because you're teaching 6th and 7th graders. You're trying to get them to love reading and writing, which are the two subjects that most don't.
And communication, and not being on their phones or their
using periods and capital letters. So I was a teacher for 10 years. I had a very unique teaching career. Don't recommend it to anybody. I taught pretty much a different subject every year for 10 years.
Wow.
So when I actually never taught the subject that I was degreed in. So my degree is in middle school social studies, and I student taught there. Actually, my last year of teaching, I told my husband, I said, who is then my fiance, I said, I don't want to become a teacher. I want to get into educational research, and I wanted to switch over to neurology and psychology. And I really, because I done some research papers, and I just fell in love with neurology and psychology, and I just wanted to really do educational research.
What was it about neurology, psychology that just hit you?
That's always been that's a longer way back.
That's a whole other episode or a whole other podcast.
My mom had an ex-husband who was bipolar, and so I learned really young, and we didn't know what bipolar was. So anyways, long story short, she read books about bipolar when they got divorced to try to process, and because I was an only child, she would, and I was she would always process with me. So so I was constantly learning about it. And I thought it was really interesting how like the genetics of bipolar, or the neurology of bipolar. And so she would learn about how, so later on when I was 18, I was diagnosed with bipolar. And I told the psychologist, no, absolutely not. Like, I don't have bipolar. And I know bipolar very well at this point. And of course, think about it. A psychologist is not like an 18-year-old telling them no. So I ended up going on a journey to try to understand what was going on with me. And I was like, I'm not depressed. I know that. And so I became very familiar. I think we were on the DSM-4 at that time. And I got really...
What's DSM-4?
It's the way that psychologists diagnose different disorders.
Okay.
And so there's a book, there's symptoms. If you match blah, 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 this number of symptoms, like a lot of diagnoses come back to this diagnostic manual. And so now that I'm talking about it, probably at 18, while I was in the throes of some other lifestyle things, it's probably a very odd thing that I was very into this DSM thing. And I started really trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And turns out I had ADHD. So I got a second opinion, and I was like, yes, now I feel seen, understood. Yes. And that explains so much of my life. And I ended up on ADHD medication, took 60 milligrams of Adderall, 2 Wellbutrins by the time I was 22 or so, because, you keep increasing the dosage. So for those who are familiar with ADHD, 60 milligrams of Adderall is a lot for my body weight, especially then. And so I guess started seeing the world through that lens. And so when I started... did some research papers in autism and different special ed diagnoses, I just found it really fascinating the way, and again, I'm not going to go into details, but I'd done research and I tried going down the vaccine route and this route and that route. And I just found it all very fascinating. The way the brain works is so fascinating. And so I wanted to just focus on that. I wanted to understand the learning process and research the learning process. But my husband, and maybe then if I understood boundaries and had more confidence in myself, I would have pushed on with that. But my husband, being the loving man he was like, yeah, we need you to get a job. We have a mortgage, right? Like, you have a mortgage. We had a child. So I became a mom at 18. So it wasn't really like me spending 3 more years in school wasn't necessarily going to be the best choice for us. And so therefore I was like, okay. And I fell in love with teaching, and it was great, and it was fine. But I always saw teaching through the lens of neurology and psychology. And I had some friends who were psychology professors. And so if I had issues in my classroom, I was calling them about it. I was like, what's going on here? Why is this happening? And so I always saw things differently than other teachers. And I think that made it, now looking back, I think that made me difficult to work with.
I was going to say, because you could say at first that made it great, but it probably in that environment where it's so like, here's how we grade you as a teacher, here's fit in these boxes, that it probably could be problematic. Yeah. Because you weren't fitting into the box of what you were supposed to be.
Yes. And I didn't realize that at the time. I thought it was really great. And I was like, don't you want to know this? This isn't developmentally appropriate. Don't you want to be developmentally appropriate? I don't know. And so I just kept moving, and I wasn't necessarily getting in trouble. I wasn't having problems anywhere, but nothing was fitting. And it was just that I had this idea. I'm an idealist, and I have this idealistic view towards education, that we can it's this opportunity for transformation, and that we can fight hard. And I fought hard. I fought hard for my students. I fought hard for my parents. My students loved me. The parents loved me. I don't think teachers loved me very much. I think they liked me. They tolerated me. But and teachers, if any teachers that I used to work with are listening to this, they're probably going to say, no, you were fine. But I'm a very go-getter, and I'm very like, if there's a problem, let's fix it. And then I saw things from a different place. And so I just kept bouncing around. It was like, okay, maybe this is it. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is where harmony is. I need harmony in my life. And I always was just looking for the place where it all fit. And then I just followed the path that God put me on too. And so I got sent to this place. And it was just, had 6 teaching certifications by the time I graduated. So when I got into special ed, I just kept getting moved around because they could. And so it just became very fascinating. I taught specialized autism classroom for a while. For 1 year, that was really interesting with nonverbal K through 4 students.
Wow.
Never had worked with a student with autism in my life before that. Was not the most trained person to be in that classroom, but I made it work and it was great. Learned a lot. But that's the year that my health went down the drain. So I worked 20-hour days, because I would go and I would teach and I would have to fix it all. And so my health just kept failing because I was literally redoing everything every day for 10 years straight. And in that autism classroom, I hit burnout, but I didn't know it was burnout. I didn't know. And so I had all these health problems. And so it just became pretty much from the moment I started teaching, every year it was like a new health problem. And so at 28, they thought I had MS. And I went through all these tests. I had a lot of an acute neurological issue that impacted my eyes. I had to wear, so my eyes were no longer tracking. So I had to wear a eye patch for 6 months. That was fun.
Yeah, as a teacher in school with kids
right.
and things, I'm
we
sure
had
that's
a pirate
difficult.
party when Miss Robinson came back to the classroom to introduce the eye patch.
Yeah.
That they all got to take off and I didn't. But anyways, it just became this thing where it was like one after another after another.
And quick newsflash for anybody who's just listening, not seeing this, you do not have an eye patch on today.
I don't have any. And then I had fibromyalgia for 8 years. So I had chronic pain. So I looked healthy on the outside, but on the inside, I was just flaming with problems, miscarriages, and this MS issue and fibromyalgia, plantar fasciitis, autoimmune issues. I was sick all the time. It was just, my body was breaking down by the age of 30.
And I'm sure you were going to a ton of doctors.
Ton of them. We are so blessed to have so many specialists, right? So many specialists. And it was like, nobody could give me the answers. Even like I would see chiropractors, I would see physical therapists. I saw as many of the people as I could. And then when the hospital issues happened, then I'm seeing specialists, and I had multiple neurologists, and then I had a neurologic ophthalmologist. And I was seeing all the people. And I remember so often they'd be like, huh, that's interesting. I've never seen that before. And after you hear that like 6 times from doctors, like there's nothing good about that. Nobody wants to be that person, right?
You just want an answer.
I just want an answer. I don't want to be that person. So finally, I guess it took getting really, really bad. I got COVID, and for the second or third time, back when they didn't believe you could have it twice. So it was like a big, they're like, no, you can't have COVID. I was like, well, I have it, so I don't want to tell you. So then I just became furious. Because then I was like, well, everyone's telling me I can't have this. I do have this. What is going on? But I got really sick. I was sick for 26 days,
Ooh.
Like dead sick for 26 days. And then it was like 2 or 3 more weeks after that. And I remember just being in my basement and just crying. I just wanted to be with my family. It was back when, you were separating yourself. It was really a dark time. And I just was like, I'm done. I'm done being sick. I'm done with all these problems. What do I need to do? And I have this prayer room that I'd had for a few years. And so I go into my prayer room and I'm just like, God, I will just help me get through this. Because I was scared. My oxygen levels were going down. I was just really sick. Just please help me get through this. And I will do whatever it takes. I promise you. I will take better care of my body. Even though I felt like I had been. I'd been healthy. And then I got better. So I had to stick with that promise. So I started learning. It was what is the immune system? Why do you get sick? Why do I get sick? I didn't know any of that stuff. I didn't really know anything outside of my head, right? I was so in love with the head that I knew nothing about the body. So I spent the next 2 years just obsessively learning about the body. And my love for educational research became my love for medical research. And it was such a profound transformation and just a fun journey that led me to sound.
So you're still teaching those 2 years while you're learning all of this, bouncing around.
Yep.
And as you're learning, still going through those health issues?
They started to get a little better. They weren't, still dealing with issues. And then I found sound. So I went on a yoga retreat, found sound therapy, had no idea what I was doing. And I'm the first to admit, I would never walk into my studio. Old me would have never walked into the sound spa. I don't think I would have, because I just wasn't, I wasn't into doing those things, that kind of thing. It would be weird. And I went on a yoga retreat. There was sound. She played gongs, bowls. I slept like a baby that night. And I had an insomnia for years. And so I just went to her and I was like, what did you do? And where do I get more of this? Because I could tell something was healing inside of me. Like I could feel it. And so she hooked me up with some people and I started going every 1-2 times a week. And it was profound. I mean, I could go on for a while with the stories, but it was just like, what? And then within 3 months, I was off all medication. No pain at all. Chronic pain of 8 years gone. Got off Adderall and Wellbutrin within 1 week without any problems. Like, it was so profound that I had no idea. And so then I was like, well, why? Because nobody could explain to me why.
Research?
And so I started researching it. Then I was like, well, because I'm telling people, like, I don't know, these bowls, these gongs, they're going, they're so good. People look at me like I'm crazy. Like, I'm telling all the teachers at my school, like, as everyone's stressed. Like, so that happened during the summer. So I go back into the school year, and this is 2021 to 2022. And I was like, you guys, you have to, like, everyone's more stressed. So that year was
COVID,
harder than the COVID year. And I was just like, you guys, everyone's stressed out. And I'm like, you have to come. You have to do the bowls and the gongs and blah. And nobody was going to at all. And I sounded probably kind of crazy because I didn't know what to say. I was just like, I don't know what it is, but they're just so great. And
what did your doctors say? I mean, I'm sure chiropractors, doctors, all the people you'd been seeing who'd probably penciled you in for that next visit.
Yeah.
What did they say? Were they curious? Did they shrug it off?
They were just like, oh. Like, yeah, it was, there's doctors now that I work with who have way more interest, right? And maybe those doctors would now, right? I have no idea. But I think everyone was, again, I don't even blame, because I think everyone was dealing with COVID still, right? I don't think, like, there were so many fires that my story probably was just not even a blip on their radar, right? It was just, here you go, check the boxes. Okay, you don't need this person, you just don't. And so I actually kind of stopped seeing a lot of doctors because it was just like, well, I don't need to go there anymore. And so then I started just learning about sound, doing the research, learning more and nervous system. And then when I found out about nervous system regulation, that's when it all started to kind of click. And so my husband, so long story short, I still didn't want to go into business doing that. That was never the plan. My husband, I finally dragged him. Like, that took a long time. But once I got off medication, he was like, oh, how? Like, he was like, how? Because he never wanted me to be on medication, but he knew that I could not be without medication. Like, you could tell. And so when he found that out, he was amazed. And so he came. Well, now you have 2 people who want to go to sound sessions and 3 kids. And so, right, we're not both leaving the house. And so there was so few that we could go to that it became almost like a fight about who gets to go. And it was never enough for both of us. And so he bought me a gong for Christmas, really just because we just decided, I was like, well, I could probably learn how to play it. And just for him and I and our family. And it was just, we need this more. And so I got a gong and I was playing it for him. And then people started asking me to play for them. And I was freaking out because I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just, doing.
How did how does this come up? How do they ask you, like?
I posted on Facebook that I got a gong. And then I would post sometimes like pictures of me playing it for the kids or something. And then all of a sudden people were asking me to bring it to like different things. And I was part of a retreat. I don't know. It was just like a lot of things. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to keep doing this, I should probably learn what I'm doing, but I don't really know. So I kind of was just playing and I was freaking out. And the first time, sorry, that was a little confusing because So a friend of mine asked me to take it to her house or take it to like this mom's night out. They had like a sleepover at an Airbnb. And so I bring the gong and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I've only been playing for my husband and I YouTubed Academy this. And so, and then other than that and what my husband tells me feels good, like he would direct me. He would be like, yes, no, start, stop. Like he would be giving me verbal feedback while I was playing so I could figure out what worked for him. And I bring it there and the ladies, you know, they'd all experienced sound baths before and they were like, yeah, that was great. It was just as good as anything else. And I was like, oh, okay. And the next day, one of my friends, she came to me and she had tears in her eyes and she said, Noelle, that was the first time I'd slept in 2 years. And she tells me about how much she'd been struggling since her mom died and how when I was playing, her mom came to her and put her arm around her and told her everything was going to be okay. And she came to me and she goes, you have to do this for more people.
Wow.
And I was I had already decided to leave teaching. I thought I was going to go do something else. And I was like, you are out of your mind. I'm not quitting my teaching career to go play gong. I'm just not. And she was like, you have to at least consider it. And she just, after we just kept talking and she was like, you have to consider it. And I was like, okay, I'll think about it. So I went to a training. I said, well, if people are going to ask me to do this, I should probably know what I'm doing. So I went to a training.
Where do you go find training?
So my first training was with Patty Pellerito at the Center of Sound. She's amazing. She's been doing this for like 20 years. So she's kind of like the old school trainer. If anybody is playing who hasn't gone to Patty Pellerito, then go to Patty Pellerito.
So a good mentor, good teacher.
Yeah, she's a great mentor. She's a great teacher. She studied under Don Conroe, who's like a gong master. And so she was really my first introduction. And it's quite an experience being with her for a weekend. And I just kind of fell in love. And I was like, okay, where's the next training and the next training? And then through that, the little breadcrumbs just started coming together. And I was like, okay, God, I'm fully surrendered. You put on my heart to leave teaching. I'm going to trust wherever I'm meant to go. Like you tell me what to do. Because I didn't know what to do after I left teaching. And so, and then I thought I was going to go do something else, but I ended up playing a gong.
What did you think you were going to go do?
So I really wanted to help bring mindfulness and more mindfulness programs into education. So I really wanted to do something with that or with health and wellness. So I got a couple health and wellness coaching certifications. And so it was along the lines of what I can do now. But yeah, I thought I was going to be teaching more like health and wellness or something more directly related. And the beautiful thing is that now that the Sound Spa is, you know, what it is, we're working on incorporating more courses and a meditation app and some of that stuff that I feel so strongly to want to teach others. We're working on a digital platform to be doing that through our app. So that's really exciting.
Probably good that you had that time in between to think you're going down these other paths, to learn the things that you learned, so that when you get to the Sound Spa, just basically I'm setting this up for like, hey, you never know exactly where your journey is going to take you, and you think you might be going in one direction, often you go in another, but usually those little side steps help in the direction that you go.
100%. You never know where you're going to go. Even when I started playing a gong, I never thought I would have an employee. Then I would have 5 employees that I would, that my husband would quit his job to start helping me, me. No, I never thought we would have a building. No, like what I thought when I first said, okay, God, let's do this. What I thought was going to happen and what has happened, I could have never planned this ever. And that's why, a lot of people, business, going into the business side of things, a lot of people have a business plan, have a plan for this and have a plan for that, right? I don't have a lot of plans. I'm going to be honest. And as my staff, I was like, here's what our priorities are for 2025. Here's what we want to do. I was like, but I have 0 plans. So, it might work out, it might not. And I'm okay with that. Like, I think true beauty and magic often comes from the unplanned things. And so now I've learned to just trust and let it happen.
I think what's important, what you said earlier, was surrendering, right? That sometimes we just go, do. We don't sit down and just be and surrender and pause and listen with our minds, bodies, hearts, souls, everything. That space to let something in, and it served you well. So why build out all these? Why spend all the time on these crazy 5, 10, 20-year plans when, see where this goes and it's working?
Yeah, I have no 5-year plan. I have a vision. Right. Like I said, I'm an idealist, so I always have a vision. I always have a vision of where I'm going. I have an idea of where I'm going. Ideas are big for me. I have a lot of ideas. Some ideas are not meant for me, and that's been, something I've had to learn. And
what do you mean by that? Meaning, are they ideas that you then, I need to share this with so-and-so, or just, I have that idea, but this is not the time and place for me?
So this comes through learning more about who I am through what some people would call soul sciences, right? So human design changed my life. And I am let me just also preface this with I am a Christian down to my core, right? But also a spiritual person down to my core. And I think both can exist really beautifully if we don't get caught up into the words, right? And I think that as my relationship with God grew closer, my own personal relationship with God grew closer, he led me to certain things that some people may seem as inappropriate, in a Christian walk, if I can preface that. But human design, really gave me a foundation to start exploring myself, and, it's kind of like astrology. And it's just something where, again, never to tell you who you are, but to consider who is this true for you? And maybe this does work for you. And so human design really has worked for me. And I think that was a huge part of me getting into alignment with where I was headed. And so as I surrendered more, as I grew more curious about who am I and why am I here? What am I really meant to do? I realized one thing about me is I am an ideas factory. If you come into my world, be prepared for ideas. I will think ideas for other people all the time. But I think as a teacher, I would get these ideas and I would start acting upon them. And then I just didn't have the energy or the time, or it just never came to, it was I was chasing all these different ideas all the time. And I think as an entrepreneur, you can do that very easily, right? There's always a shiny something somewhere. And I think that can really distract you in business, especially when, my business needs me to focus here, right? I need to have somewhere that I'm focused. And so I think that I have lots of ideas and I'm just getting better at really being okay, that's a great idea, but not now. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a great idea, but maybe later. And so maybe I catalog a bunch of ideas, and if I ever, which I'm never not in a place with ideas. I know, and I take that for granted because I think some people really struggle to get ideas and creativity. And so I'm very blessed that just comes very natural to me. But it can also be overwhelming because back when I had ADHD and really struggled, it was you're boom, 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 boom. One teacher said it's I have 25 cats walking around my head at all times, and there's a Post-it note on each of them, and it just depends on which cat's in front, and that's what I'm doing, right? That's kind of how I used to live. Whereas now I kind of just let ideas come and go. And I know that the ones who are meant, this is how I see my relationship with God and the universe around me. What was it? Oh, Big Magic. I can't remember the name of the book, but there was a book that I really liked, and it was ideas are somehow it made me think that ideas are like bubbles, right? There's these bubbles of ideas that are all around us, and if you just think that these ideas, they come and they go and they can come through your head, this is my visual, not telling anyone this is how it is. This is how I see ideas, and this is my peaceful place that I found for myself. This is how I understand them. But ideas are just like these little bubbles, and like they come in and they come out and they come in and they come out. And maybe because we're talking, maybe some idea that you had like comes in, and I'm thinking about, you know, because I'm around you. So maybe I get some different ideas, and then I go somewhere else, and all these ideas are coming in. And I'm just going to like, oh, that's really interesting. And I'm going to let it go. But the ideas that are meant for me to work on are the ones that keep coming. They get sticky. Right. And maybe I thought about it while I was in the shower, and then I thought about it while I was going to bed, and then I thought about it again. You know, like I let the ideas now percolate, and the ones that keep coming back, then that's the one that I act upon, if that makes sense.
It does make a lot of sense. I think it's a good way to think about that, because you're right, with so much that we have going on. I need to take care of that. I need to take care of that. I need to do that. Like, let it be the ones, let go. Release, surrender, and let those thoughts, feelings, visions, whatever, the ones that keep repeating, those are the ones to focus on.
Yeah, probably thoughts. Yeah, I guess in some people, like it might come out as like thoughts. I'm really good at, I don't have racing thoughts, so I forget. I mean, every now and then I have my days sometimes, but I guess after, you know, I've been doing this sound journey for 4 or 5 years now. So, I feel very blessed that I just don't really struggle with racing thoughts anymore. So I'm very intentional about my thoughts. I'm very intentional about my mind, my mindset. I protect my mindset more than any, like my mindset is my greatest asset. My mind in general is my greatest asset. And I think it's everyone's greatest asset. But I treat it as it is. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't do. They don't realize the harm that we are doing to our minds on a daily basis, if that makes sense.
It does to me. I've done a lot of reading and focus work on mindset. Still a lot more practicing and work to go.
Absolutely.
Never done with that. But maybe share more around that for those who are like, what does she mean about the mindset is so important? And 1, 2, and I know these are 2 questions. How do I protect it?
So mindset, the reason why I say mindset is so important, and this isn't just mindset. Let me just say, like, when I say mindset, I also mean your body, your heart, right? Your just beingness. Right. I think that just labeling mindset, I don't think we have words in the English language to properly communicate a lot of ideals and values. And so I think that our lack of words just limit our lack of understanding. So when I say mindset, I mean all of it, the body's wisdom, just how we approach life. So really your nervous system. And I think your nervous system impacts everything about how you experience life and how you respond to life. And that's your whole existence right there, right? If I am feeling upset, if I'm stressed, if I'm rushing, let's say I woke up late and all of a sudden now I need to make coffee, right? And if you've ever been there, some days when you make coffee, it's very easy. And you just put the coffee in, you hit go, and it's done. But there are some days where you're stressed, and then all of a sudden something tips over and something falls and this happens, and then you spill the coffee, grounds, and you're like, what is happening, right? And then there's some days where maybe I'm feeling a little depressed. And just the act of making coffee feels like I'm lifting 100 pounds, right? It's all the same thing. You're making coffee. But depending on what kind of mood you're in, what set your nervous system is in, will absolutely impact your experience of making that coffee. Does that make sense?
It does, I think. And I love the story or the analogy there, because making coffee can be so simple. Yet how we enter into it can change.
Right. And so if you're really stressed, right? So the coffee maker hasn't changed. The coffee grounds haven't changed. Your coffee cup hasn't changed. But if you think about it over the years, that day of making coffee, that moment, which we forget most of the time, but that moment of making coffee, we've experienced lots of them that are different, just solely because of the state we were in. And so I think that we don't give that enough respect. We don't give that enough we often look outside the world. Well, why did he leave my coffee mug here? Why did, I don't know. We often blame the coffee maker. And
coffee maker in my house is usually my husband. So
yeah, we often blame the coffee maker, and it's really us. And so, but then you take that and you're stressed, and then the coffee, and then that happened, and then you're walking out the door, and then the coffee spills on your shirt or something, and then you're getting into your car, and then you're stuck in traffic, and it's just one thing after another, after another, and after another. And then you finally get home from work, and you've just had enough. I mean, you're nervous. Your window of tolerance is closed. You've dealt with all the things, right? And your kid refuses to eat dinner or whatever it is, right? Or got in trouble at school, and you're just, right? And then that huge release happens, and that release comes in screaming and yelling or crying, whatever it is, because the nervous system has to release. And so I think that when you change your state, when you decide that, and it's not easy. Living calmly in this world, not easy. Not easy at all. And I'm very aware, and I work on it every day, and I still go into loops. I still have my days. And so I would say that impacts everything, because then it's not only, okay, so how you experience, but then how you respond to life. So the second part is how you respond to life. Would you have responded the same way to your child in that moment had you been having a great day? Someone brought you a Starbucks, whatever it is, right? You come home, you made that huge sale, whatever it is, you got that huge compliment from your boss, you come home feeling like $1 million, your kid gets in trouble. Oh, well, what happened? Now all of a sudden you can approach the conversation with curiosity, with compassion, with understanding. And that is all dependent on the state of your nervous system. It's all dependent on your quote unquote mindset. But to me, it's just nervous system. And so for me, I protect that like it is gold. I protect my nerve as much as I can. Right. I'm very mindful. But it's not easy. So I've been up since 3:30 this morning. Right. I had a busy day today. So I'm not going to sit there and say this is gold, right. But I wake up early so I woke up at 3:30. I started with some reading, some journaling, then some meditating, some prayer with God and Bible. Spent some time doing a little bit of yoga. Had a blood draw. So I had a blood draw at 6 a.m. So I've had multiple appointments before I got here, but I knew that, I knew that I needed to be at this blood draw by 6 a.m. So therefore I needed to get up a little bit earlier so that I could do the things that I do to set myself up for success for the day. Got 3 loads of laundry done before I even, before 7:30 a.m. And when I start with that calm, I can, I rule the world. I rule my world. Nothing, my son's flipping out this morning, and I'm not running, and I was able to stop, talk, calm, right? And so if I had woken up late, if I was running late for my appointment, and then my son's freaking out before school, that would look a lot different. So for me, and just everything that I manage in a day, I prioritize. So I go to sleep really early. Again, I say no to things so that I can say, this is my theme for right now. I say no to things that even if I like to do it, so that I can say yes to things that I love, which is my family, my business, my team, right? Right now, there are things that it's easy for me to say no to things that I don't want to do. But right now I've started saying no to things that I want to do. The glass of red wine while sitting there watching TV with my husband and staying up late. That sounds really great in the moment, but Noelle's really going to regret that the next day. So I'm getting better at saying no to those things so that I can say yes to that peaceful morning where I wake up 3 hours before anybody, or 2 hours before anybody else is up. Usually I need at least 2 hours before anyone else is up, so that I'm setting myself up for success.
There's probably some people listening going, 3 loads of laundry, this, that, before whatever time. I hate her. How does she do it? But beyond that, it's funny you say that. I think the calm and the peace, I was talking to somebody this weekend. She gets up early during the week to have that cup of coffee, to sit outside for a little bit, to have that calm and peace before her young kids get up, so that she just feels like she has a better day.
Yes.
With calm and peace. Whereas so many of us, I think, are run that alarm as late as we can, hit snooze. Oh my gosh. Oh crap. We got to get up. Like, get the kid up, get the rush. And that energy is just, and then you get into traffic and,
and all the things.
Right.
And I know because I've been there. That was me for my entire life. I've lived most of my life in fight or flight, in a state of just chronic stress, which is why I had all the health issues. So if anyone's listening to this and thinks like, oh my God, like, how can I ever do that? It is a process. It is a long process. I am 4 years into this process, right? Like, so let's just not even compare. You're not comparing apples to apples. And I'm and this isn't my everyday, right? I mean, I wake up pretty early most days, but on the weekends, if I'm tired, I'm sleeping in, right? I'm not perfect every day, right? I knew today was a day that there was just that's just what needed to happen. I'm also a business owner though, right? And I'm a mom of 3 kids, and that's really hard. That is not like any working mom. I mean, any mom needs to take care. I would say 100%, if you love your kids, take care of yourself. Period. The end. If you are not showing up as your best self when you are with your children, which I don't always show up as my best self, damage happens. This is when we don't respond in loving ways. We get tired and irritated with them. Just leave me alone, right? Just leave me alone. Like, I just need some time, right? As moms, we are pushed in a million directions. So there is no shame. And I have been there a million times. I've been a mom for 19 years. I've probably shared all the stories, right? So I've had all the moments. I am, and it is what it is. And I'm doing the best I can at every moment. And sometimes the best I can do when I'm in a state of fight or flight isn't the best that I want to do, right? But right now, just the season of life that I'm in, I no longer have the luxury to not prioritize these things. Because when I don't show up as my best self for my business or for my team, then I have collateral damage that I have to deal with. And if I'm not showing up as my best self for my kids, so right now in this season of my life, I'm learning to be more disciplined so that I can get the things that I really want in life and balance having my kids, and good family relationships at the same time. And that's not an easy task.
The collateral damage, I think, is a very good visual as far as you may save time in the short run by not taking care of yourself. Mm-hmm. However, whether it's physically like what you went through or just the more challenging relationships, which then feeds into your kids, or the people that you lead, the people on your team, which causes collateral damage in business or life, it then on the back end takes more time and energy and pain
100%.
To course correct, resolve, salvage, whatever, repair, whatever you might think.
And not only that, but it's also the shame and the guilt. How many hours of our mind is occupied by shame and guilt because we said the wrong thing?
I don't know what you're talking about. Women don't have that problem.
Never.
Sarcasm, everybody. Sarcasm, for sure.
Right? So much shame and guilt. And I mean, that alone can eat someone alive. It really does. And it does. It's not even a can. It does. Shame and guilt. And I spent decades in shame and guilt, right? Like, so this work is not easy. I've faced myself, faced ugly parts of myself. I have, spent time. Well, why do I act like that? Why did I respond to that? Like, becoming, one of the hardest things to do is to receive that feedback from someone else and not get defensive and just really take ownership. So that's another thing that I'm, really working on is like, wow, I'm always doing the best that I can, and I still hurt people in the process when I have, right? And so I think shame and guilt, when we when we don't see, I think we take on a lot of that what doesn't belong to us as women, right? So a common theme, this is what I commonly see, I'll say it, this is what I commonly see in women that really keeps us stuck in that cycle. One is worthiness. A lot of women don't truly own that they are worth taking care of, that they are worthy of taking care of themselves. And I think a lot of that comes from the true desire for someone else to come and take care of us. I think that women, we care so much for so many other people, and there's often still childlike parts of us that want to be cared for, that maybe missed being cared for at some point or whatever it is, right? So there's two parts there. One, it's, am I worthy of being cared for even, right? Am I truly at my core, am I worth having a massage? Am I worth spending $40 on myself to go, to get a pedicure or whatever it is, right? Like a lot of women struggle but they pay $1,200 for their kid to play soccer.
Yes.
Right? $1,500 for that private tutor, right? Whatever it is. And you're asking whether you should go and spend $120 on a massage? Like, that's a difficult thing.
That comparison just makes it, I can't stop the thought in my head, but makes it so silly to know that I all the time think, no, I'm not going to spend that on myself.
Why not?
Ooh, we're unpacking probably deep vaults of emotions, but I'm sitting here connecting with what you're saying, right?
Yes.
That be everything to everyone else, that's your worth. And at the end of the day, there's nothing left.
Right. And so therefore, it's a worthiness. And then the second one is nobody's coming to take care of you. Nobody's going to come and tell you, Cynthia, you need to go get that $120 pedicure. We often are subconsciously waiting for that, for someone to give us permission to do that. And no one's going to do it. Every now and then your husband might be like, hey, go pamper yourself. But you don't need that.
Looking right at him.
Wink, JJ. But we don't need that. You get to go and spend $40 on a sound session. Our sound sessions are super inexpensive, right? You get to go take an hour. It's usually not even the money, it's the time.
Right.
How much time do you spend on your kids? How much time do you spend cleaning your house? Are you spending more time cleaning your house than you're spending cleaning yourself?
Wow.
Right?
Wow. And that really is, wow. That's a great way to say cleaning yourself, because that, yeah.
Getting the gunk off of you. The gunk that gets stuck, the gunk in your heart, the gunk in your mind, the gunk on your body, like whatever it is, that inner work is worth it. And I'll tell you right now, I never spend more time cleaning my house than I do working on myself. And I don't have a house cleaner. I don't have that. So we clean our own house, right? But I am now to a point to where it's like, no, this is a priority. And if I am spending more time on those things, and I have my weeks, life gets in the way and I have to reprioritize. It is a constant choosing of reprioritizing. And so it's knowing that you're worthy, knowing that you get to, right? No one has to give you permission. And if anyone's listening and you need permission, here I am giving you permission.
And it's not selfish.
No, this is your permission slip, because if you really love your kids, don't you want to be there with your grandkids? Don't you want to be able to help them raise their kids? Don't you want to be there whenever they need help? No, you don't want them to have to be coming and taking care of you because you're sick and you can't get out of bed, right? We want to be there for them. So we need to take care of ourselves now so that we can be there for our children in their life.
And not just to exist while they're there, but to really be a part of it, participate, not exist, live, not exist.
Exactly. And so we need to take care of ourselves. We are our number one asset. Our bodies, our minds, our number one. It is the only home that we have to live in. It is our temple. It is your soul will never live anywhere else. This is the only home you have to live in for your whole life. And so if you are investing more money into your physical residence, your house, more than you are your soul's home, where can we start looking at priorities? I say those things because I know that a lot of people resonate with that. And I used to, right? And I heard someone say it somewhere. I'm sure some of these things. And so worthiness, knowing you are worthy, not waiting for anyone to give you permission, right? Truly not feeling guilty about investing that money, that time into yourself. Alex Hormozy did say something where it was like, if you invest in yourself, then it pays off in dividends. And it was really good. But he was more talking about like skills and stuff like that. But I think that women need to know that investing in that just 1 hour a week, if you're at 0, start with an hour. If maybe you start with 10 minutes a day.
Yeah,
right?
Even if you can't start there, it's that little bit. If it's an hour a month,
Yes.
like start somewhere.
Start somewhere and recognize that investing in yourself is worth it. It is the best because you will show up better for your family. You will show up better at work. You will show up better in all areas of life. When you heal your nervous system or are in the process of healing, because nobody's ever healed. We're always healing. The way you experience life and the way you respond to life will change. Always for the better, right? It's amazing. And so, yeah. And this is not, I spend a lot of time on myself now, but that's because I've built the habits. But this is a marathon. It's not a race. This is a journey. So it's just figuring out where you're at. Maybe you're somebody who works out all the time. And if working out is the only thing that you're doing, but you're doing it consistently, okay, let's see. And maybe you're eating healthy, right? Whatever it is, and you're being intentional about that. So you've got some collateral, you're investing in yourself there, right? So maybe you start with meditating 10 minutes a day. Or going to a sound session once a week, right? I'm a mom of 3. I don't have, in a small business, I don't have a lot of free time. So I need to get the most bang for my buck and my time, right? I need to get the biggest output, right? The biggest change. And so that's why I do sound sessions, because they're infinitely more for the time in. There's so much better ROI, right? My return on investment for going to a 1 hour sound session is better than me meditating at home for 2 hours. Right. So I'm always going to choose what gives me the best for my time and my energy. But I would just say you have to start somewhere. And if you're nowhere, then maybe it's washing your face. Right? Maybe it's putting on some lipstick. Whatever that looks like for you, right? Like it's just starting somewhere, and then you can start with the healthier habits. And then maybe you start learning about nervous system regulation, and maybe then you start journaling, but it's not a race, and it doesn't have to be the same. We're women. Women are not meant to be consistent in anything. We're not meant to be the same every day. I never do the same thing every day, So it's learning and respecting that you can flow and ebb and do, but I think the bigger overall is not letting the chaos of life dictate where you're at and where you're going, finding a way for you to start taking control. And for me, that's nervous system regulation. For me, that's staying in peace and calm and prioritizing my inner peace so that I can see life clearly instead of all the years that I spent with a fog, right? I spent so many years with a fog around me and in pain all the time that I just refused to go back there. And this is going to get long. I refuse to go back there, but I don't want to just be in the middle. So there's this wellness spectrum that people don't realize. So we think that if I have no symptoms, I am well. And most people, they only try to get to no symptoms. But that's actually the middle of the spectrum. Then you have the whole other side of thriving. Right? So there's symptoms, we don't want that. And then there's no symptoms, and then there's thriving. And there's all these layers past no symptoms that most people don't get to because they don't think they're worthy of it. And they just want no symptoms. But that's just living life on almost like, I don't know, say you have 3 motors and you're living, like you're driving a Cadillac with like worn out tires, right? So I think that that's the other thing is women, we often just find no symptoms to be enough. Okay, that's good enough. That's good enough. And we don't realize what's actually there for us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and sometimes no symptoms, there's still a different set of pain, maybe a pain that you've numbed yourself to, but there could still be some pain there. No, it all makes sense. And recently in my life, there were some changes made. And I remember driving into work one day and I just heard this voice in my head that said, is it finally safe to be happy? And I think, for that longest time, well, there probably were symptoms, but it was more of that surviving versus thriving mode. And, along with some of the other things you said there, because we would just have to do a totally other podcast because, wow, this has been amazing. And we've already been talking for so long. So I know I have to wrap it up. Yeah. Getting into that, again, being more meditative myself, I will agree with you. It's not a one session done. It's not like you go to one class and all of a sudden you're a perfect computer programmer, or you had no woodworking skills and now you can just build a house, right? It just like fixing your physical symphony attunement. It's not a one and done sort of thing. It takes time, it takes practice, and there's going to be speed bumps and diversions along the way, no matter how long you've been doing it. But you'll never get there if you don't start with the atomic habits and little books say, start 1% at a time. Start somewhere, start a little bit, and then you just fold in more. Or by the end of a year, you're 365, 1% days better. Anyway, so a lot of what you said resonates, and man, I understand. And I wish it didn't take me to my 40s to figure some of this out. I could have learned more of this in my 20s.
You could have, but how amazing that you learned it in your 40s.
True. See, different mindset.
I have a lot of women who are learning it in their 60s. We get a wide range of ages, and a lot of women who are learning in their 60s, and they wish that they would have learned it in their 40s.
And as we're talking about this whole time, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, okay, I think like my next networking event or my next, I just want to ask a bunch of women and people I know. And I'm even thinking with my husband, like we've been saying we need to entertain couples more. Like we could totally do like a couple session there or do something at the sound spa. Like how do we make it a community connectivity? So I'm already got my brain swimming about how to get there with more people.
And that's where, if you're not taking time by yourself, let's say you're taking social time, you hang out with your girlfriends, maybe instead of going out for wine, maybe you guys go to a sound spa, or maybe you guys go to a yoga class, right? How do we start turning our social events into improving our wellness as well? Because it is so common for us to go out to eat foods that we normally wouldn't eat, usually late at night, and drink, right? Which is fine. No judgment there. But if you're looking at your calendar and you're like, because I work, I do the things, but I really love to go see my girlfriends. I'm in this book club. Great. What could maybe your book club do once a month? Or, once a quarter, right? So I think that we have to really start getting creative about how we're fitting in wellness and doing it as a community with partnership, because you're going to do it. You're going to stay focused if you start bringing your friends along, bringing your circle along with you. And that's been really cool. And that's why we do group sessions. I think that there's a lot of power in community. There's a lot of power in like-minded people. And even if you don't know the person, maybe, some people come and they've built really great friendships, and, we've met some of the coolest people. But even if you're not engaging, you're still benefiting from being part of the community. And we're communal, we're communal beings. And so I think that's the beauty of a sound immersion, is that everyone can have their own experience. You're in your own space, you're in your own, thing. But in the end of the day, you're also around people.
And there's just that spiritual connectivity of, oh my gosh, what we just went through. Even though we're on our own journeys in our own minds and space, we now know, like, you went through that too, and what a great way to take care of yourself, be better, more present for everyone around you, but also, I think, keep adding in those people who will be on that journey with you, support you. As we talked earlier, it's a lot about, the energy around you. What you pick up on is the people you have around you. So what a great way. So again, my brain's already thinking about how to incorporate this. And maybe others, as we've listened, have said, oh my God, I'm going through that. Or I know somebody who's on this awful, physical state journey, and maybe they should try the sound spa in St. Peter's. Where do they find, and I will say also on LinkedIn and Facebook, you post a lot of really great content, just mind awareness challenging things to think about. So not only following the company, but looking at you, what you're posting and sharing is helpful. So how do people find you and the Sound Spa and your whole team?
Yeah, so you can look me up on Facebook or LinkedIn, Noelle Robinson, Noelle J. Robinson, JAE on Instagram, and then the Sound Spa STL is where we are. But yeah, I'm often sharing all kinds of things. I love encouraging people to take time for themselves. If you're not going to take time for yourself with us, we're not for everybody, and that's okay. We're for most people, but
let's throw that out there. Make sure that's
just saying. But ultimately, what I want to see is I want to see a world where people just feel more peace, and however that has to get there, right? Whatever is right for them in that moment, that season, that lifestyle, right? And I think that that's what I love about social media, is that you're starting to see more of that type of content. You can find us at www.thesounspa.com. It's super easy to book a session. If anyone's struggling with any of the things that we mentioned, it's amazing when your nervous system gets regulated, how much life transforms. And so I would highly recommend find the hour, find the time. We do daytime, we do evening. It's just walk through the door is sometimes the hardest step. And so putting it on the calendar, your calendar has so many things that you're doing for other people. Let's start putting things we're doing for ourselves on our calendar.
That's a great way to end it, and find the peace, find the calm, because you're worth it.
Yes, I love it.
Thank you so much for being so open, sharing so much, your journey and opportunities for others who may be saying, I got to find something. I need help. Yeah. And this might be the opportunity.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Noelle.
It's been lovely.
This concludes another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. To hear more episodes of the show, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And to learn more about our mission of helping women reach higher levels of success, visit sheliftproject.com and sign up to receive the latest news, ebooks, videos, and more.